The crystalline halls of Station Primacy reflected light in 1,000 different colors. The station orbited a neutron star called Velcara, and today it hosted representatives from 200 alien species. They gathered in the massive council chamber, a place where decisions affecting trillions of lives were made every day. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime, converting hundreds of languages into something everyone could understand. Ambassador Thalrix stood at the center podium. His species, the Velcari, had skin like polished stone and eyes that glowed faintly blue. He was presenting the monthly report on newly contacted civilizations. It was routine work, boring even. Most council members barely paid attention as Thalrix droned through the list of primitive worlds that had been discovered and catalogued. In a small office 3 levels below the main chamber, Hyunwoo was having a very different kind of day. He was young for his position, barely 25 years old, and he was the only human working in the xenolinguistics division. Most days he felt lucky to be there. Today he felt confused. Hyunwoo stared at his computer screen, his finger hovering over the keyboard. Something was wrong with Earth's file. He had been doing routine data entry, cross-referencing Earth's astronomical coordinates with the ancient precursor databases. The precursors were an extinct civilization that had mapped the galaxy millions of years ago. Their archives were incredibly detailed and still used by the Galactic Council for reference. The problem was simple. Earth's coordinates matched perfectly with a world in the precursor database, but the name was different, very different. The precursor file listed the same location as something called Chaos Prime. Hyunwoo ran the translation algorithm 3 times to make sure. Every time, it came back the same. Chaos Prime translated roughly to the Crucible of Ending in ancient precursor language. That made no sense. Earth was just Earth. A pleasant world that had recently joined the galactic community. Nothing special about it except that humans were relatively new to space travel. Hyunwoo figured it was just a database error, maybe coordinates that got mixed up over millions of years. But something nagged at him. The file had a red marker next to it, something he had never seen before in any precursor record. He clicked on the marker. The screen flashed a warning. Access restricted. Forbidden registries. Clearance level Omega required. Hyunwoo felt his stomach drop. Omega clearance was the highest security level in the entire Galactic Council. Only the senior council members had it, people who had been working in government for centuries. Why would Earth have an Omega level security flag in an ancient database? He should have stopped there. He should have closed the file and forgotten about it. But Hyunwoo was young and curious, and he convinced himself he was probably just seeing an old security protocol that nobody had bothered to update. He entered his supervisor's override code, something he technically had access to for emergencies. The screen went black, then red. Alarms began blaring throughout the entire station. Hyunwoo jumped back from his desk as if the computer had burned him. Emergency lights flashed in the hallways. His door slammed open and 2 security officers rushed in. They were not human. One was Velcari, the other was something with too many arms and eyes that looked like a nightmare. "What did you do?" the Velcari officer shouted. "I just opened a file," Hyunwoo stammered. "I was checking Earth's coordinates, and I found something odd." The security officers looked at each other. The many-armed one moved to Hyunwoo's computer and examined the screen. Its face, if you could call it that, went pale. In a species that was naturally purple, that was quite noticeable. "Get Counselor Vren," it said quietly. "Get him now." Within minutes, the small office was crowded with important people. Hyunwoo recognized some of them from council broadcasts. Ambassador Thalrix was there, looking annoyed at having his presentation interrupted. Several military officers in various alien uniforms stood near the door, and then there was Counselor Vren. Vren was old, not old like a human grandfather. Old like a mountain. His species lived for thousands of years, and Vren was ancient even by their standards. His skin looked like bark, weathered and cracked. His eyes were deep green and filled with knowledge that came from living through the rise and fall of civilizations. Vren looked at the computer screen. He read the words there. His face, which normally showed no emotion at all, twisted into something that might have been fear. "It cannot be. he whispered. His voice shook. That alone terrified everyone in the room. Vren never showed fear. Never. What is Chaos Prime? Hyunwoo asked. His voice came out smaller than he intended. Vren turned to look at him. For a long moment, the ancient counselor said nothing. Then he spoke, and his words changed everything. 3 million years ago, the precursor civilization was at its peak. They had explored most of this galaxy. They cataloged over 50 million worlds. Of all those worlds, they found 7 that they classified as Tier 1 extinction worlds, places where life evolved under such terrible conditions that the creatures there became something dangerous, something that could threaten the entire galaxy if they ever developed space travel. Vren paused. He looked at all the aliens in the room. Then his eyes settled on Hyunwoo. Your world was one of those 7, the only one in this entire region of space. The precursors were terrified of it. They built barriers around your solar system, powerful technology designed to keep anything from leaving. Those barriers were supposed to last for 1 billion years. But humans have been in space for over a century, Thalric said. We made first contact with them 20 years ago. How did they get past precursor barriers? The barriers failed, Vren said simply. Or perhaps they were broken. I do not know which is worse. The room fell silent. Hyunwoo felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. He thought about Earth. He thought about his home, about the forests and oceans, about cities full of people living normal lives. How could that be a death world? How could humanity be dangerous? There is more, Vren continued. The precursors left a prophecy. They said that if the children of chaos ever reached the stars, the age of peace would end. The galaxy would learn the true meaning of survival. That is ridiculous, Hyunwoo said. He knew he should not interrupt a senior counselor, but he could not help it. Humans are not monsters. We have been part of the galactic community for 20 years. We have helped people. We have contributed to science and art and medicine. This prophecy is just ancient superstition. Vren looked at him with something like pity. I have lived for 3,000 years. I have seen prophecies dismissed as superstition before. I have watched them come true anyway. The precursors did not make mistakes. If they classified your world as an extinction threat, they had good reason. The alarms were still blaring. More officials were arriving every minute. News of the security breach was spreading through the station. Soon, Hyunwoo knew, it would spread through the entire galaxy. He had wanted to be a researcher, to help build bridges between humans and aliens. Instead, he had just discovered that his entire species was considered a galactic threat. He had opened a file that should have stayed closed, and now, everyone would know the truth about Earth. The age of innocence was over. The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted 3 days without stopping. During that time, Counselor Vren ordered the deep archives to be opened. These were precursor databases that had not been accessed in thousands of years. They were buried under layers of encryption and protected by security systems that could kill anyone who tried to break in without proper authorization. Now, teams of specialists worked around the clock to unlock them. Ji-won was part of one of those teams. She was a human xenoarchaeologist, someone who studied ancient alien civilizations. She had dreamed of this her whole life, getting to work with precursor artifacts. She never imagined it would happen like this. She never imagined she would be translating warnings about her own species. The archive chamber was deep underground, carved into the asteroid that formed the base of Station Primacy. The walls were lined with data crystals that glowed with soft blue light. Each crystal contained more information than all of Earth's libraries combined. Ji-won stood before one of these crystals, wearing special gloves that let her interface with the ancient technology. I have something, she called out. Her voice echoed in the chamber. Other researchers hurried over, a mix of different species all working together. One of them was Hyunwoo. He had been reassigned to the archive team, partly because he knew about Chaos Prime already, partly because the council wanted to keep an eye on him. What did you find? Asked Dr. Kelth, the team leader. He was a spindly creature with 4 arms and a head that looked too large for his body. Ji-won touched the crystal and it projected a hologram into the air. Text appeared, written in ancient precursor script. The translation system worked through it slowly. "It is a classification file," G1 said. The precursors rated worlds based on how dangerous they were. Most worlds got low ratings, safe places where life evolved peacefully. But there is a special category here. Tier 1 extinction worlds, only 7 in the entire galaxy. The hologram shifted, showing images of different planets. Each one looked terrifying in its own way. One was covered in volcanoes that never stopped erupting. Another had oceans of acid. A third had gravity so strong that nothing could stand upright without being crushed. "Where is Earth?" Hyunwoo asked. He sounded afraid to know the answer. Ji-won scrolled through the data. Then the hologram showed a planet that looked very familiar. Blue oceans, green and brown continents, white clouds swirling in the atmosphere. It looked beautiful. It looked like home. But the data beside it told a different story. Ji-won read it aloud, her voice shaking slightly. Planet classification, Chaos Prime. Tier 1 extinction world, threat level, absolute. The file says that Earth has an atmosphere that dissolves metal. Water falls from the sky with enough force to damage structures. The ground moves and breaks apart regularly, creating earthquakes that can destroy cities. The planet has a moon so large it pulls entire oceans back and forth twice a day. Life evolved in constant competition, with predators hunting other predators in an endless cycle. "That is just weather," Hyunwoo said. "Rain is not dangerous. Tides are natural. Every planet has earthquakes sometimes." Dr. Kelth made a sound that might have been a laugh or a cough. "My homeworld has rain once a year. It is a gentle mist that lasts for an hour. Your rain can flood entire regions. Your tides can pull ships out to sea. Your earthquakes happen somewhere on your planet every single day. To you, this is normal. To the rest of the galaxy, it is nightmare fuel." Ji-won kept reading. The file says Earth goes through regular mass extinctions. Every few million years, something kills most of the life on the planet. Asteroid impacts, ice ages, volcanic eruptions. But life always comes back. And it always comes back stronger and more adapted to survive. The hologram showed images of Earth's creatures, dinosaurs with teeth like knives, sharks that had remained unchanged for millions of years because they were already perfect killing machines, insects that could survive radiation, bacteria that lived in boiling water or frozen ice. Then it showed humans, early humans barely different from apes. The precursors had been watching Earth for a long time. "Listen to this part," Ji-won said. She read directly from the translation. "The dominant species of Chaos Prime are unique in the galaxy. They are not the strongest creatures on their world. They are not the fastest or the most poisonous, but they have something more dangerous. They have persistence. They can run for hours without stopping, chasing prey until it collapses from exhaustion. They can survive in almost any environment on their planet, from frozen wastelands to burning deserts. They make tools and weapons. They work in groups. They plan and strategize. Most importantly, they do not give up. Ever. They will try something 100 times, fail every time, and still try again." The room was silent. All the alien researchers stared at Hyunwoo and Ji-won. The two humans suddenly felt very uncomfortable. "There is more," Ji-won said quietly. The last entry in this file was written by a precursor scientist. It says, "We have observed them for 10,000 of their years. They have gone from living in caves to building cities. They fight each other constantly, but they also help each other. They create beautiful art and terrible weapons. They dream of reaching the stars. We cannot allow this. If they leave their world, they will spread across the galaxy. They will not conquer it with weapons. They will conquer it simply by being impossible to stop." Dr. Kelth leaned closer to the hologram. "What did the precursors do?" Ji-won scrolled further. "They initiated something called Quarantine Protocol Omega. They built a barrier around Earth's solar system using zero-point energy technology. The barrier was invisible and undetectable. It worked by subtly changing gravity fields, making any spaceship that approached Earth's system think it wanted to go somewhere else. Ships would turn away without even realizing they had been redirected. But that did not work," Hyunwoo said. "Obviously. Humans built spaceships. We developed faster than light travel. We broke through the barrier." "Not exactly," Ji-won said. She had found another file, this one more recent, only a few hundred years old. The barrier did not break, it eroded. Human FTL experiments created resonance waves that the precursors never predicted. These waves slowly damaged the barrier over the course of a century. By the time humans made their first interstellar flight, the barrier had collapsed completely. Nobody noticed because nobody knew it was there. Hyunwoo sat down heavily on a nearby bench. His mind was racing, so the precursors tried to lock humanity away forever. They were afraid of us, and now we are out here, living among aliens who just learned they should be terrified of us too. Jiwon sat beside him. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "The precursors went extinct. Nobody knows why. They were the most advanced civilization in galactic history, and then one day they just vanished. Every trace of them gone except for these archives. What are you suggesting?" Dr. Kelth asked. "I am suggesting," Jiwon said carefully, "that maybe they were not afraid of what humans might do to the galaxy. Maybe they were afraid of what would happen if humans were not there when the galaxy needed them." The other researchers looked skeptical. Dr. Kelth shook his head. "That is wishful thinking. The files are clear. They saw humans as a threat, but Hyunwoo was not so sure. He thought about the prophecy Counselor Vren had mentioned. When the children of Chaos reach the stars, the age of peace ends. Maybe that did not mean humans would end the peace. Maybe it meant something else was coming. Something that required the kind of strength that only evolved on death worlds. Before he could voice this thought, alarms started blaring again. This time they were not security alarms. They were emergency broadcast signals. Something was happening in the council chamber. The research team rushed back up to the main levels. When they arrived, they found chaos. Council members were shouting at each other in a dozen languages. Security forces were everywhere, and on every screen the same news was broadcasting. The information about Earth had leaked. Within hours, every civilization in the galaxy would know that humans came from a death world. They would know about the precursor warnings. They would know that humanity had been classified as an extinction-level threat. The age of peace was indeed ending, but not the way anyone expected. The news spread across the galaxy faster than anyone thought possible. Within a week, every major world knew about Earth's true designation. Within 2 weeks, the reaction had turned violent. Eunice stood in the human embassy on Station Primacy, watching reports flood in from across known space. She was Earth's senior ambassador, a position she had held for 5 years. In that time, she had worked hard to build trust between humanity and the galactic community. Now she watched all of that work crumble in real time. The first incident happened on Telvar Station, a major trade hub near the galactic core. A group of human merchants were attacked by a mob. 3 humans died. 20 more were injured. The local authorities did nothing to stop it. When questioned, the station administrator said that people were scared and fear made them do stupid things. More incidents followed. Human students were expelled from universities. Human workers were fired from their jobs. Human ships were denied docking privileges at ports they had been using for years. On some worlds, human civilians were rounded up and deported, forced onto ships and sent back toward Earth whether they wanted to go or not. The Galactic Council met in emergency session again. This time, the chamber was divided into clear factions. Una could see the split just by looking at where people sat. On one side were the hardliners, led by Admiral Krex of the Tharn Dominion. The Tharn were a militaristic species that valued strength and order above all else. Krex was old and scarred, a veteran of a dozen wars. He stood at the podium now, his voice booming through the chamber. "The evidence is clear," Krex said. "Humans come from a death world. The precursors, the most advanced civilization in history, were so afraid of humanity that they locked them away. We must finish what the precursors started. All humans must return to their solar system immediately. We will establish a military blockade around Earth. Modern technology will succeed where the precursor barrier failed." Many council members nodded in agreement. Fear was a powerful motivator, and right now the galaxy was very afraid. Una stood up to respond. She felt every eye in the chamber turn toward her. Some looked at her with pity, others with disgust, a few with outright hatred. She took a deep breath and began. "Admiral Krex speaks of evidence, so let us examine the evidence. Humans have been part of the galactic community for 20 years. In that time, how many wars have we started? None. How many worlds have we conquered? None. How many treaties have we broken? None. Yes, we come from a harsh world. Yes, our evolution was driven by survival. But we are not the monsters you fear. We are people. We have families. We create art and music. We fall in love. We laugh and cry. We are not so different from any of you. You are completely different from us. shouted a voice from the gallery. It was a representative from the Velen Collective, a peaceful species that had never known war. Your world created you to be killers. You cannot change your nature, can we not? Yuna asked. Humans learned to control fire, something that terrified our ancestors. We learned to fly, defying gravity itself. We learned to split atoms and reach into space. If we can change the world around us, why can you not believe we can change ourselves? The debate raged for hours. Some spoke in support of humanity. Most did not. In the end, the council voted to form a special committee. This committee would design tests for humanity, 3 tests that would prove whether humans could be trusted or whether they needed to be quarantined. Yuna knew it was not a fair solution, but it was better than immediate military action. She voted in favor, as did Earth's other representatives. They had no choice. Back on Earth, the reaction was mixed. Tae Yang, a general in Earth's defense forces, argued for cooperation. He appeared on every news channel, his face calm and serious. We must accept these tests, Tae Yang said. Not because we are guilty, but because we must prove our innocence. The galaxy is afraid. We can show them they have nothing to fear, but only if we engage with them honestly. But not everyone agreed. Da Yun, a prominent scientist and political activist, held the opposite view. She organized protests in major cities across Earth. This is discrimination, Daun shouted to crowds of thousands. We are being judged for crimes we did not commit. The precursors were wrong about us. They extinct and we are here. That should tell you something. We will not bow to these tests. We will not accept second-class citizenship just because we had the misfortune to evolve on a difficult world. The arguments split human society. Families fought over dinner tables. Friends stopped speaking to each other. Some humans wanted to cooperate to show the galaxy that humanity could be peaceful. Others wanted to resist, to stand up against what they saw as cosmic injustice. While humanity argued with itself, the extremists in the galaxy were taking action. A secret meeting took place in the dark space between stars. 20 representatives from various species gathered on an unmarked ship. They called themselves the Purification Committee, though they had no official authority. The test will fail, one of them said. It was a creature covered in scales, its eyes reflecting no light. Humans will pass these tests because they are clever. They will hide their true nature until they are strong enough to reveal it. By then it will be too late. Then what do you propose? Asked another. We strike first. We remove the human threat before it can grow. An accident, a tragedy. The human homeworld suffers a terrible disaster. Everyone will mourn. No one will know it was us. They began to plan. It took 3 months to prepare. They stole weapons from military stockpiles. They recruited sympathizers from a dozen worlds. They chose their target carefully. The attack came on a Tuesday morning. New Horizon Colony was one of humanity's newest settlements, built on a moon orbiting a gas giant. 5,000 humans lived there, along with 2,000 aliens who had chosen to live among humans. The colony was peaceful, focused on farming and research. The extremists hit the colony with orbital strikes. Plasma weapons burned through the domes that protected the settlement. Air rushed out into space. Buildings collapsed. People ran in panic, but there was nowhere to run to. The attack lasted only 10 minutes. When it ended, 300 people were dead. Another 1,000 were injured. The galaxy was horrified. Even those who feared humanity condemned the attack. But the damage was done. On Earth, the calls for retaliation grew louder. Military units mobilized. Ships prepared for war. Taiyang worked desperately to prevent escalation. He contacted his counterparts in alien militaries, people he had worked with for years. He promised that Earth would not seek revenge. He promised that humanity would find the attackers and bring them to justice through legal means, not violence. It was a hard promise to keep. Many humans wanted blood, but Taiyang convinced Earth's government to show restraint. They would track the terrorists. They would capture them. But they would not start a war. Meanwhile, Hyunwoo had gone into hiding. After his discovery about Earth's true name, he became famous for all the wrong reasons. Some humans called him a traitor who had exposed their secret. Others called him a hero who had revealed an important truth. Both sides sent him death threats. Jiwon helped him find a safe place on station primacy, a small apartment in the maintenance levels where few people went. She brought him food and news from the outside world. This is my fault, Hyunwoo said one night. He sat on the floor of the tiny apartment, his head in his hands. If I had not opened that file, none of this would be happening. You did not cause this, G1 said firmly. The truth was always there. Someone would have found it eventually. Better that we know now than discover it during some future crisis. People are dead because of me. People are dead because some aliens are cowards who fear what they do not understand. That is not your fault. That is theirs. Hyunwoo wanted to believe her, but guilt ate at him anyway. He had been a researcher, someone who loved knowledge for its own sake. He never thought about what knowledge could do when released into the world. Now he understood that some truths could be dangerous, not because they were false, but because people were not ready to hear them. Outside the small apartment, the galaxy held its breath. The tests were being prepared. Humanity's fate would soon be decided, and somewhere in the dark between stars, other forces were moving. Forces that neither humans nor aliens yet knew about. The age of peace had ended. What came next, nobody could predict. The Galactic Council announced the tests 3 months after the New Horizon attack. They would be simple in concept but difficult in execution. Each test was designed to reveal something fundamental about human nature. Humanity would have 1 year to complete all 3 tests. If they failed, the quarantine protocols would be implemented. The first test was called the Mercy Protocol. It was designed by a committee of psychologists and philosophers from 24 species. The test was straightforward. Would humanity help those who hated them? The opportunity came sooner than expected. On the world of Shankara, a deadly plague broke out. The disease attacked the nervous system, causing paralysis and eventual death. It spread quickly through the population. Within weeks, hundreds of thousands were infected. Shankara was an industrial world, home to 12 billion people. Its government had been one of the most vocal opponents of humanity after the Earth revelation. The planetary governor had given speeches calling humans monsters. He had banned all human ships from Shankara space. He had even suggested that humans should be eliminated before they could threaten civilized species. Now his world was dying, and the investigation traced the plague to a laboratory accident. Not biowarfare, not terrorism, just terrible luck and poor safety protocols. But rumors spread anyway. Many Shankarans believed humans had released the plague as revenge for their anti-human stance. The Galactic Council watched and waited. Would Earth send help to a world that despised them? Seok-jin was a doctor, specializing in infectious diseases. He had spent 15 years working in the worst conditions on Earth and in human colonies. He had seen plagues before. When he heard about Shankara, he volunteered immediately to lead a medical mission. Earth's government debated for 3 days. The Security Council argued it was too dangerous. The Shankarans might attack human doctors. They might accuse humans of making the plague worse. It could be a trap. But Seok-jin insisted. He appeared before Earth's Council and spoke plainly. "They are dying," he said. "Nothing else matters. We have the knowledge and resources to help. If we refuse because they do not like us, then we prove them right about us. We become the monsters they fear." In the end, Earth approved the mission. Seok-jin assembled a team of 50 doctors and researchers. They loaded their ships with medical equipment and experimental treatments. They knew they were flying into hostile territory. They went anyway. When the human ships arrived at Shankara, the planetary defense forces almost fired on them. Only direct intervention from the Galactic Council prevented violence. The humans were allowed to land, but the reception was cold. Seok-jin and his team set up medical facilities in the worst affected regions. They worked 18-hour days, treating patients who looked at them with hatred and fear. Some Shankarans refused treatment from human hands. Others accepted help but spat insults while being cured. The work was brutal. The plague was aggressive and deadly. For every patient they saved, 2 more became infected. Seok-jin pushed his team hard, but he pushed himself harder. He barely slept, surviving on stimulants and determination. Local doctors began to work alongside the humans. At first, they only did it because they had no choice. But as days became weeks, they started to see the humans differently. These were not monsters. These were people who had traveled across the galaxy to help strangers who hated them. After 2 months of constant work, Seok-jin's team helped develop a cure. The plague was defeated. Millions of lives were saved. When the humans prepared to leave, something unexpected happened. Hundreds of Shankarans came to the spaceport to see them off. They did not cheer or celebrate, but they bowed their heads in respect. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. The first test was passed, though some skeptics claimed humans only helped to avoid looking guilty. The second test came 4 months later. It was called the Restraint Doctrine. Would humanity show mercy to those who harmed them? Or would they seek overwhelming revenge? The answer came in blood. The extremist group that had attacked New Horizons struck again. This time, they hit a human colony world with a population of 2 million. The attack was coordinated and brutal. They used weapons that specifically targeted schools and hospitals. 20,000 civilians died. Most of them were children. The galaxy watched in horror. Even species that feared humanity condemned the attack. The extremists had gone too far. They had revealed themselves as the real monsters. Earth's military tracked the terrorists to their base in neutral space. It was a hidden station in an asteroid field, protected by shields and automated defenses. Admiral Taeyang commanded the operation personally. His officers wanted to use heavy weapons. They wanted to vaporize the entire station, ensuring no terrorists survived. The public demanded it. The families of the dead demanded it. Even the Galactic Council privately suggested that strong retaliation would be acceptable. But Taeyang refused. He assembled a special operations team instead. 50 soldiers, the best humanity had. Their orders were clear: capture the terrorist leaders alive. Use non-lethal weapons where possible. Minimize casualties even among the enemy. The operation was dangerous. The human soldiers fought through automated defenses and fanatical guards. 3 humans died in the assault. 12 more were wounded. But they took the terrorist base intact. They captured 47 terrorists alive, including all the leaders. The prisoners were handed over to galactic courts for trial. They were not executed. They were not tortured. They faced justice under the law, the same law that protected every species in the galaxy. Some humans were angry. They felt the punishment was too light. But Taeyang spoke to the public and explained his reasoning. We could have killed them all, he said. It would have been easy. It would have felt good. But then we would be what they claimed we are. We would be monsters who solve problems with violence. Instead, we showed restraint. We proved that we value justice over revenge. That is what separates us from them. The second test was passed, though critics said humanity was only hiding their true nature until they grew stronger. The third test was the hardest. It was called the sacrifice choice. Would a human give their life for aliens, proving they valued other sentient beings as much as their own species? The opportunity came in tragedy. A spatial anomaly appeared near a civilian space station. The anomaly was a tear in reality itself, something that happened rarely in deep space. It would consume the station in 3 hours. The station housed 5,000 aliens and 500 humans. Evacuation began immediately. Ships arrived to take people to safety. But the station's reactors were unstable. If they failed before evacuation was complete, the explosion would destroy the rescue ships too. Someone needed to stay behind and manually stabilize the reactors. The job would take 4 hours. The anomaly would consume the station in 3. Whoever stayed would die. There was no possibility of survival. No chance of rescue. It was a death sentence. Bora was an engineer on the station. She was 29 years old, brilliant with machines, and she had her whole life ahead of her. When she heard about the problem, she volunteered without hesitation. Her supervisors tried to stop her. They said they would find another way. They said her life was too valuable to waste. But Bora was calm and certain. Someone has to do it, she said simply. It might as well be me. I am good at this work. I can give everyone else the time they need to escape. She walked alone into the reactor chamber while the evacuation continued. 5,500 people climbed into ships and fled to safety. Bora stayed behind, working at the controls, adjusting power flows, keeping the reactors stable through sheer skill and willpower. She kept communication open with the evacuation fleet. Her voice remained steady as she reported her progress. The reactor temperature was rising. The station was shaking apart around her. The anomaly was getting closer, reality itself warping near the station's edges. In her final hour, Bora started singing. It was an old song her grandmother had taught her when she was little, a Korean lullaby about stars and dreams. Her voice carried across the communication channels to all the ships in the evacuation fleet. Thousands of aliens listened to a human woman singing while she died to save them. Many wept, even species that did not normally cry. They understood what they were witnessing. Not a monster from a death world. A hero who chose kindness over survival. Bora completed the stabilization with minutes to spare. The last evacuation ship jumped to safety. Then the anomaly consumed the station. Bora's final words, broadcast to the entire fleet, were simple. Tell my family I love them. Tell them I was not afraid. The galaxy mourned. Memorials were built on 100 worlds. Bora became a symbol of humanity's best qualities. Even those who had feared humans the most could not deny the evidence. A human had given her life for aliens without hesitation. The Galactic Council convened to vote on humanity's fate. The debate was shorter this time. The evidence spoke for itself. Humans had shown mercy to enemies. They had shown restraint and revenge. They had shown willingness to sacrifice for others. The vote was close, but it passed. Humanity would not be quarantined. The restrictions were lifted. Humans would remain full members of the galactic community, though they would be monitored. The celebration lasted only 3 days. The Galactic Council was preparing to make a public announcement about humanity's successful completion of the tests. Ambassadors were drafting statements. News services were preparing broadcasts. There was hope in the air, a feeling that perhaps the galaxy could move past its fear of humans and build something better together. Then the long-range sensors detected something impossible. A fleet was entering the galaxy from intergalactic space. The ships were enormous, each one larger than a city. There were thousands of them, moving in perfect formation. They were not broadcasting any identification signals. They were not responding to communication attempts. They were simply coming, inevitable as death itself. The first contact happened at the edge of the galaxy, near a small research station monitoring cosmic radiation. The station sent a standard greeting message in 100 languages. The fleet responded with weapons fire. The station was destroyed in seconds. 300 scientists died without understanding what had killed them. More reports came flooding in. The fleet was advancing on multiple fronts, moving through the outer territories like a blade through silk. They destroyed everything in their path, ships, stations, entire colonies. The casualties were mounting by the hour. Admiral Krex, who had argued for humanity's quarantine, now faced a real enemy. He called an emergency meeting of all military commanders in the galaxy. Representatives from 50 species gathered in the war room deep inside Station Primacy. Among them was General Tae Yang, representing Earth's defense forces. "We have identified the enemy," Krex announced. His voice was grim. "They call themselves the Vreln Swarm. They are a hive mind species from another galaxy. Our intelligence suggests they have been conquering worlds for millions of years. Now they have come here." Holographic displays showed the Vreln ships. They were organic-looking, grown rather than built, with weapons that seemed to be part of their living structure. The images also showed Vreln ground forces. They looked like insects magnified to horrifying size, with multiple limbs and mandibles that could tear through armor. "We need to organize our defense," said a commander from the Telvar Confederacy. "Pool our resources. Establish defensive lines. Standard protocols." Taeyang studied the tactical displays. He watched recordings of Vreln attacks. Something bothered him about their tactics. They fought in a way that seemed familiar, but he could not place why. Then it hit him. "They fight like humans," he said aloud. The room fell silent. Everyone turned to look at him. "Explain," Krex demanded. Taeyang pointed at the tactical display. "Look at their strategy. They do not care about casualties. They throw forces at defensive positions until they break through. They adapt quickly when tactics fail. They never stop advancing, never retreat unless it serves a larger goal. They accept losses that would break most species, and they keep coming. This is not how galactic forces fight. This is how humans fight." The other commanders looked at the displays again. They saw what Taeyang saw. The Vreln used tactics that seemed reckless by galactic standards. They sacrificed units to gain information. They used diversionary attacks to hide their real objectives. They turned every battle into a test of will, betting that their enemies would break before they did. "Why would they fight like Death World species?" asked Krex. "Because they probably are one," Taeyang said. "They evolved somewhere harsh, somewhere that taught them the same lessons Earth taught us. The only difference is they never learned restraint. They never learned mercy. They are what humanity might have become if we had chosen a different path." The meeting continued for hours. Defensive strategies were planned. Fleets were mobilized. But everyone knew the truth. The galaxy had spent millions of years living in relative peace. Their militaries were designed for small conflicts and peacekeeping. They were not prepared for total war against an enemy that would never surrender. Meanwhile, Hyunwoo and Jiwon were back in the archives. They had a theory. something that had been bothering them since they first discovered Earth's true designation. If the precursors were so powerful, why did they go extinct? What could have destroyed them? Ji-won found the answer in the deepest level of the archives, in files that had been sealed with the highest security protocols. She had to use emergency wartime clearances to access them. What she found changed everything. The precursors fought a war, she told Hyun-woo, her voice shaking with excitement and fear. Millions of years ago, against an enemy from the void between galaxies. They called them the Endless Hunger. The descriptions matched the Vreln swarm exactly. Hyun-woo read through the files with growing understanding. The precursors lost. Their entire civilization was destroyed. They were too peaceful, too advanced. They had lived in safe conditions for so long that they forgot how to fight for survival. There is more, Ji-won said. She pulled up another file. This one written in a shaking hand, clearly composed in desperation. This is from the last generation of precursors. They knew they were going to lose. So they made a plan. They found Earth, a death world in the galactic core. They studied humanity and saw potential. Not the potential to be conquerors, but the potential to be survivors. They established the barrier not as a prison, but as a time capsule. They were saving humanity for when the galaxy needed us, Hyun-woo whispered. The prophecy was not a warning, Ji-won said. It was a promise. When the children of chaos reach the stars, the age of peace ends. Not because humans end it, but because the galaxy will need warriors again. The precursors knew the Vreln would return eventually. They left humanity as their final gift to the galaxy. They brought this information to the Council immediately. At first, nobody wanted to believe it. The idea that the precursors had been protecting humanity, not imprisoning them, seemed too convenient. But the evidence was clear. The files were genuine. Councillor Vren, who had lived long enough to see the rise and fall of civilizations, understood immediately. We judged humanity for being warriors. Now we need them to be warriors. The universe has a cruel sense of irony. The Galactic Council made an unprecedented decision. They placed General Tae-yang in command of the combined Galactic Defense Forces. A human would lead the war effort. Many protested. Some refused to serve under human command. But most understood there was no choice. The Vreln were winning, and conventional tactics were failing. Tae-yang accepted the position with a heavy heart. He knew what it meant. He would have to teach the galaxy how to fight like Earth fought. He would have to turn civilized species into soldiers willing to make terrible sacrifices. He would become the thing many feared humans were. The war lasted 18 months. It was brutal beyond anything the galaxy had known in living memory. Tae-yang used tactics that horrified his allies. He ordered retreats that looked like cowardice but were actually traps. He sacrificed entire fleets to gain strategic advantages. He turned planets into fortresses and forced the Vreln to bleed for every meter of ground. At the Battle of Nexus Gate, a critical hyperspace junction, the Vreln committed 90% of their remaining forces. It was meant to be their final, overwhelming push into the heart of the galaxy. Instead, Tae-yang let them advance, stretching their supply lines, then cut them off from retreat. The battle lasted 3 weeks. 60,000 humans died in the fighting, along with millions of aliens. But the Vreln main force was destroyed. After that, it was just cleanup. The remaining Vreln forces were hunted down and eliminated. The last Vreln ship was destroyed in the dark between galaxies, far from any star. The war was over. The galaxy had survived, but at enormous cost. In the aftermath, something changed. The species that had feared humanity now understood them. The galaxy had learned what the precursors knew, that strength without mercy was tyranny, but mercy without strength was suicide. Humanity had both. They could be gentle with the weak and terrible to the wicked. They knew when to show compassion and when to show steel. Hyun-woo stood in the memorial garden on Station Primacy. They had added new names to the monuments. So many names. He found Bo-ra's name among them, the engineer who had sacrificed herself during the tests. Her death had seemed meaningful then. Now it seemed like a small tragedy in an ocean of loss. Ji-won found him there. She had been working to catalog the war archives, preserving the story for future generations. They stood together in silence for a while, reading names of the fallen. "Do you think the precursors planned all this?" Hyun-woo asked. "Did they know the Vreln would return? Did they know humanity would be ready?" "I do not think they knew," Ji-won said. "I think they hoped. They saw potential in us and gave us time to develop it. Whether we fulfilled that potential was up to us. An alien child approached them. It was a young Shinkaran no more than 6 years old. The child looked up at Hyunwoo with large, curious eyes. "Are you human?" the child asked. "Yes," Hyunwoo said, kneeling down to the child's level. "My teacher says humans come from a death world." "Is that true?" Hyunwoo glanced at Jiwon, then smiled gently at the child. "Yes, it is true. Earth is a very harsh place. The weather is dangerous. The ground shakes. Life there is hard. Are you scared?" the child asked. "Sometimes," Hyunwoo admitted. "But being scared is okay. It keeps you careful. It keeps you alive. My parent says humans save the galaxy.